Welcome. Welcome to City 17. You have chosen, or been chosen to
Hello everyone. Welcome to the Vortal Combat Update. I know it's been a little while since the last update. I've been quite busy the last couple of months, and so I haven't been able to dedicate as much time to Roots as I had in the past. However, I've still been working on Roots, and now I can present to you a new major update. I have decided to call it the Vortal Combat Update. While this update includes a wide variety of things, some of which I can't even remember that I've added in, there are two primary things that were worked on. Forts, of course, and overall changes to combat, including the ambience and interactions with Combine soldiers. There are a great number of changes included in this update, and I will briefly mention all of the most notable ones. First things first, the Vortigons, left stranded on Earth after the Zenian invasion, can now have their Zen shackles removed, using a new special item that rebels can craft. It was designed by Dr. Eli Vance in order to allow the Vortigons to join the Resistance. This, of course, unlocks all of the Vortigons' powers. Their connection to the Vortessence allows them to shoot lightning, do an area of effect blast, and even resurrect people from death. But that's not all. Vortigons can also now speak in Vortigese and have proper animations for when they're speaking. When a Vortigaunt, out of character, uses their microphone, in-game they will speak in Vortigese. Other Vortigons can understand them just fine, but humans, well, to them it's just an alien language. And speaking of, Combine soldiers now much more accurately behave like the ones from Half-Life 2 when it comes to their voice lines and radio chatter. This is quite a major change to how the Combine soldiers feel, and it adds even more to the illusion that they are actually themselves NPCs. One of the other things that's important to mention relating to your interactions with Combine soldiers, as well as civil protection, is combat music. The music in Half-Life 2 is quite good, especially for tense combat scenes, and I wanted to introduce that to Roots in some way. Now, I've written scripts that can attempt to accurately gauge when you're in combat and create music that will fit the situation. There's unique music for interacting with different people like civil protection, Vortigons, and Combine soldiers. Hopefully this will really amp up the gameplay and make some tense situations all the more engaging. For those of you who aren't interested in the music or find it's not at the appropriate volume, there is now a setting in the options menu for you to change the volume. Another major change to combat is the balancing fix that I've applied to the first aid kits. The infinite ones that rebels used to use are now no longer infinite. They consume a resource. This resource is refilled at two places in the world. In the city, inside of the Civil Protection building, which you will have to be allowed access to, and at the Rebel base. They are placeholders until I make a new medical system, but they should fix a lot of the strange balancing mechanics that Rebels had with infinite healing, especially in the canals. It was a very necessary fix, and it's a good thing to lead to the mentality of conserving your healing supplies for the future. But while it's a little bit more difficult to maintain your health with the first aid kit, I've improved how vitality works to make keeping your vitality up a little bit more easy. Meaning if you're at a very low vitality and you eat a very high vitality food, it will grant a lot more than it used to, making regaining and maintaining high vitality much easier. I've also made some changes to how you physically engage with combat. A pretty major one here. Weapons are no longer toggled whether or not they are held up. You hold right click, or whatever you have attack 2 bound to, and that will raise the weapon. When you release the button, it will lower the weapon. And so now you have to very intently aim a gun or ready a melee weapon. It's not something you simply lock into the state of. Now aiming a gun is a far more intentional action. It feels a lot better this way, and it gives the weapon a lot more weight. The readying time has also been reduced, so it's a lot easier to actually ready your weapon when you need to. Speaking of weaponry, I've made a change to cameras and scanners. They're now going to pick up on whether or not you're carrying a weapon, regardless of whether you've clicked to equip it in your inventory. That is to say, if you are in possession of a weapon, it will detect it. This change was made because in the very near future, I am going to be reworking the inventory system, and keeping something invisible from cameras and scanners while it's on your person is not always going to be as easy. In some cases, it certainly will, but having a shotgun in your back pocket that is completely undetectable has always been a little strange, and it's broken the gameplay for resistance in the city. You're going to have to be a lot more clever now, not being able to sneak up to somebody with an SMG completely unnoticed until the last moment. You'll have to plan out where and when you have your weapons, hiding them in spots before you intend to use them. And I think you're going to be using them a bit more. I've added a new source of ammunition in the game. In the canals, in the same sorts of places where you would find melee weapons, you can now loot 9mm and SMG ammunition. This should make it a lot easier for rebels to stock up without having to constantly go back to the city, and it should aid in the offset that we have between how many guns there are versus how much ammunition there is. Some of you may worry that now scrap will infest the canals, and I have something good to share with you. That is that scrap metal is going to be slightly changed in how it works. Scrap, quite uniquely, is going to, quote-unquote, rust away at the end of each day. That is to say, unlike other items which are saved within the world, scrap metal and its subsequents that you craft are not saved in the world. They are currently going to remain in your inventory, but if you want to go scavenge metal and you lay it on the ground, it won't be there tomorrow. As I've mentioned with changes to the inventory system in the future, this is a bit of foreshadowing for things to come. Having a Vortal friend with you in the canals should make it a lot easier to get this ammo, and now you don't have to worry about getting Snoop Dogged every time you enter. I will say one last thing about the Vortals, though. The whitelist is being reset as of the release of this update, and the requirements for the whitelist are going to change. Vortals, being a hive mind, do not have individual names, so you will not be naming your Vortal character. In addition, being a Vortal is going to be considered a far more serious and important role than it was before. It is a privilege not to be taken lightly, along the lines of being an OS. And so you have to play the part. If you are a Vortal, you are in character, and you can't be caught minging, otherwise you're going to lose access to the privilege of being a Vort. And that privilege is going to be in quite high regard. Vorts are not going to be very common, so you should do your best. It's important to remember that it's all about what you can contribute to the world and the immersion of all of the people in it. This is the first of several major updates that will consist of the transition into Chapter 2. The new map is being worked on as we speak. Roots is slowly and steadily becoming more and more like Half-Life 2 each day. I'm excited to see you guys play around with all of the new stuff that I've added in the Roots Vortal Combat update.